Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Can we get serious now?
One thing that did happen during the 60s was some music of an unusual or experimental nature did get recorded and did get released. Now look at who the executives were in those companies at those times. Not hip young guys. These were cigar-chomping old guys who looked at the product that came and said, I don't know. Who knows what it is? Record it, stick it out. If it sells, all right. We were better off with those guys than we are now with the supposedly hip young executives who are making the decisions of what people should see and hear in the marketplace.
Success in the music business begins with a dream, a vision. This podcast will give you, the listener, the insight and tools to turn that vision into a reality. Meet the industry professionals who work day by day behind the scenes, helping to make those dreams come true. Welcome to the business side of music.
Another exciting edition of The Business Side of Music. Today in the studio, Joey Stuckey. Now, if you've never heard of this guy, let me tell you a little bit about him. He's an award-winning singer-songwriter, guitarist, composer, record producer, radio and television personality, music columnist, educator, and sound engineer. He's the official music ambassador for his hometown of Macon, Georgia, and the owner, senior sound engineer, and resident producer of Shadow Sound Studio in Macon, which boasts both vintage analog gear along with state-of-the-art digital technology. One of my favorite things is analog. He's also a professor of music technology at Mercer University, along with Middle Georgia State University, and an official mentor for the Recording Connection School in Los Angeles. Oh, yeah, by the way, he's blind. Joey, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure, my friend. Thanks for having me.
I read your bio. You sound like, first of all, a man of many hats. I think we could call you a Renaissance man. But you're also someone who doesn't seem to take no for an answer and really didn't let the lack of eyesight getting in your way to accomplish what you want.
Yeah, that's totally true. I mean, I am a very eclectic spirit. I have a very active mind, and so I like to keep that occupied. Probably, I think everybody's happier that way if I'm occupied. But it is true. I mean, I can't take all the credit. My parents did an incredible job of making sure that I never thought that I was limited. I had a brain tumor, which is why I'm blind. They took that thing out when I was about 2 years old. A lot of health challenges from that. Spent about 30 some odd days in the ICU. And then, I have some latent issues from the brain tumor. Like I have a metal shoulder, had to have a total metal shoulder replacement, had to have a total hip replacement, spent some time in a wheelchair, some different things like that. But my parents did something that was really important when I was small, and it served me well for my entire life. And that is that they told me, or they taught me rather, how to focus on affirmational things and not fear. And that was really important. So the doctors didn't think I was going to live. They thought that the brain tumor would kill me. They knew it would kill me if they didn't operate. They thought it would probably kill me if they did. And even if it didn't, they thought that I would probably never walk or talk. And so that was a very difficult time. But my parents did something really amazing. They said, look, instead of you thinking about this day where you had this brain tumor surgery that could have taken you from us, we're not going to think of it as a day of fear. We're going to think of it as a day you beat the odds. And that's sort of a very simple idea, but it's a very profound one. And it's the reason that I just sort of don't know how to do anything but keep on keeping on. That's just what I know. That's how I was raised.
That's probably one of the biggest understatements I've ever heard, because from what you just described, you've had just about everything thrown at you but the kitchen sink, and that's probably in there somewhere.
The kitchen sink's in there. It is true. I mean, things have not always been easy. There have been some great periods of stress, and I've had to fight for my health. I've had to fight for it and work at it, focus on it, make sure that I did everything I had to do. Fortunately, I'm a very good patient, so whatever the doctors tell me to do, I just do it with alacrity. And the thing is, I cherish life so much, and I'm so amazed by the world that we live in. I am so astounded with the beauty of music and just how incredible music is. It's a language. It's a language with no barriers. It's this amazing otherworldly thing that is really, I fill my life up with it. As a blind person, my entire universe is sound. And I fill that universe with music and laughter, and I just, that's what keeps me going. Besides my family and friends, the desire to create music, the desire to leave the world a little bit better than I found it, is a really powerful driving force. But I do music not because it's a job or because I like it. I'm honestly obsessed with it, and creating for me is the same thing. It's anathema to breathing to me. That's just what I do.
You talk about a couple of your musical influences. Obviously, vocally, you mentioned folks like Mel Torme, Greg Allman, but then when you get into the guitar world of things, Jeff Beck and Wes Montgomery. Now, with that being said, you talk about two polar opposites of the guitar world, and I'm a huge fan of both. Wes Montgomery to me is probably the preeminent jazz guitarist that everybody from Pat Metheny to George Benson to Earl Klug have all set the bar to reach. Jeff Beck, he's in a total different stratosphere himself. Were you influenced by something musically? How'd you come across, because once again, such a wide parallel of guitarists. How did you discover those?
Well, it's interesting. As I say, I'm really an eclectic soul, and I just love music. And I love classical, country, rap. It doesn't matter. There's wonderful music in every genre. I certainly have the genres that speak to me. Some genres speak to me more than others, but I really just enjoy music, and I explore it. I think of it as an amazing journey because, I'm not really looking at anything. For me, everything's sound. I don't have any visual input. So, some people like to hike in the mountains, and that's kind of their way they explore the world. For me, it's to listen to music and to try and listen to things I haven't heard before. So as a teenager, I was just exploring all kinds of different music. I was always excited to find something new. I will listen to anything once. I may not listen to it twice, but I will listen to anything once. But I just love the power, the excitement of Jeff Beck's playing. I think it's just so exciting. I think there's an energy there. Wes Montgomery, on the other hand, is such a melodic genius. He's more about, I feel like he's a little bit more melodically pleasing. I think that Jeff Beck just has such an energy and such a vibe. And it's the same thing with Hendrix. I mean, I love Hendrix and what he does. If you analyze Hendrix from a technical perspective, he's got really great hands. He can do a lot of bends and stuff like that. But, his stuff is more about all these wonderful bends and the way he energizes the guitar. The actual riffs, the sort of melodic content isn't really that challenging to play, but it's the way that he expresses those somewhat simple ideas that makes it so amazing. So, I think Jeff Beck and Hendrix and Eddie Van Halen bring such excitement to guitar. And I think about people like Wes Montgomery, as you said, Pat Metheny, George Benson, one of my other favorites, Joe Pass, Herb Ellis. Those guys are so melodic and so interesting in their melodies. So I love it. If I had to give myself a style that I have sort of come up with for my guitar playing, I would call it bebop blues.
Wow.
So it's like melodically I think bebop stuff, but I play it not like most of the great bebop guys are horn players. So I don't play the guitar like that, but I play it like Hendrix. If Hendrix would play bebop or Van Halen would play bebop, that's the kind of stuff that I like to do. I don't always get to do it because sometimes it just isn't appropriate.
Yeah.
But when we're having fun and I'm just cutting loose and people are coming to hear me do my thing, oftentimes I'll do that kind of thing.
So I'm going to put you on the spot here just a little bit. Favorite Jeff Beck album?
Best of. I cheated. He's got a greatest hits album. I forget what it's called. But that's kind of a cheat because then you can hear a lot of the great stuff. But he did some great session work that people don't remember. There's some great records there. And actually my friend Jimmy Hall from the band Wet Willie sings with Jeff Beck's band and does a lot of stuff. So I have a connection there too, which didn't happen until later in life.
Wow,
But,
and there's another name I haven't heard in a long time, Wet Willie.
Yeah, those guys are great. They were from Alabama, but they moved to my hometown of Macon, Georgia in the 70s. and really launched their career here. And of course, Jimmy Hall, who was their singer for that band and plays an amazing harmonica, is also a good sax player. He lives in Nashville now, and has played with, Jeff Beck and Hank Williams Jr. and all kinds of people. But I love those guys. I love that whole. I wasn't really aware of Southern rock, believe it or not, even though I was born in the mid '70s. I really wasn't aware of Southern rock because I was born in Jacksonville, Florida, and then moved to Macon, Georgia when I was about 15 years old, and that's when I found out about Southern rock. So I'd missed the boat by 20 years.
Well, and I think groups like, obviously the Allman Brothers, Marshall Tucker, Wet Willie, their big hit, Keep On Smiling, which came out in, I think, 73 or 74. I mean, those acts influenced me, as much as probably Led Zeppelin or Jeff Beck did too, or Chicago.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, those were the sort of Southern rock equivalents of Chicago and bands like that. They were incredible. And you had Molly Hatchet, and you had Loose Change, and you had other greats. A lot of other great bands like Mother's Finest. A lot of those bands that made sort of Middle Georgia and Macon, Georgia, kind of their jumping off spot because of Phil Walden and what happened, in the 70s in this area.
We're going to take a little break, get a word in for one of our sponsors, and when we come back, we're going to have a little more conversation with Joey Stuckey here. Talk about his guitar playing and his band and all the really cool things he's got going on.
Hey friends, this is Angela McHouston of Music Strong, and I am here with Bob Bender on the business side of music.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Hi everyone, I'm Larry Butler, and I want to send you a free digital copy of my new book, The Singer-Songwriter Rulebook, 101 Ways to Help You Improve Your Chances of Success. That's right, everything you need to know to launch your career as a singer-songwriter, all based on my 40 years in the live performance arena, and believe me, I've seen it all. In my book, you'll find the 10 things you have to deal with before even thinking about becoming a singer-songwriter performer. You'll also learn about the 5 things every singer-songwriter can do this weekend to make their live show better. 5 things I can guarantee that you are not doing already. Plus, there's tips on songwriting and staging, photo and video shoots, publishing, merch, dozens of other topics. All written for people who don't particularly like to read. And again, it's free. Just go to the Business Side of Music website homepage and look for my book cover. Click on it, and a free digital copy of my book will be yours. I'm Larry Butler, and I approve of this message. Thanks.
Whether you consider yourself a musician or not, music is all around us, and it affects our everyday lives, whether it's background music influencing our shopping habits in a store, organ music adding the vibe to a baseball game, or a playlist convincing us to keep going on that last mile of a run. I'm Mindy Peterson, host of the podcast Enhance Life with Music, where we take a holistic look at music's benefits through the lens of science and medicine, entertainment, and business. You can find me and Enhance Life with Music at mpetersonmusic.com/podcast or wherever you get your audio.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Back in the studio, Joey Stuckey is with us today here. You're an award-winning guitarist, singer, songwriter, composer, producer. There really, I think as I said in the first segment, there's really not much that you haven't done. But maybe I should ask you, what is on your radar of what you'd like to do that you haven't accomplished yet?
Well, that's a really great question. I'm always looking to improve. I'm always looking to do something better. I'm always looking forward to stretching myself. I want to push myself to the edge of my ability and then hopefully surpass that next time. So a couple of things. I want to do a big band record. I used to sing when I was in college. I'd sang with our school big band, and I loved it. I got a lot of people that really enjoyed that. And I really want to do a big band record. So that's something I haven't done. I want to do, a couple of other things. There's some friends of mine that I haven't worked with yet that I really want to work with. Ron St. Germain, who's an amazing engineer and producer, who's done all kinds of wonderful acts. He and I have been talking about doing a record together. My friend Mark Hornsby, who's also an incredible producer engineer, we've been talking about doing a record together. Another friend of mine, Scott Travis, who's the drummer for Judas Priest. We've been talking about trying to get together and do some music. Another friend, Ross Hogarth, who has done records for Van Halen and all kinds of amazing artists. Won a Grammy a couple of years ago with a blues record he did. He and I have been talking about doing, some music together. So there's just a lot of really wonderful, talented people that I love to surround myself with. But I just haven't quite figured out, number one, what project will we do? What kind of music will we do together? And then secondly, when we're going to find the time. That's kind of the other thing. Right now, I have a live album from when my little rock blues trio was on tour in 2019 through early 2020. I have a live album that I need to mix. And then I have a jazz record where I shut my band off this is an expanded band. I don't tour. I usually tour with, 3 people because it's just easier logistically and financially. But I had an expanded band of like 5 guys. And I just shut us in the studio for a weekend. We recorded 11 songs that I wrote. It's a little bit more hardcore jazz, a little bit more avant-garde, and all the songs are named after different astrophysics or physics stuff, because I'm a big love science and I love art. I think they're 2 sides of the same coin. So I've got to mix that record. I've got those things on my list of things that I've got to do. And then I've still got a few things hanging out. This year, with all the crazy things going on in the world with COVID and things like that, I just started releasing 1 song a month back around March, I think it was. And they were songs that I'd recorded and finished and had kind of sitting around, and they just hadn't quite found a home where I was going to release them all. So I just released them, 1 song at a time, which is the name of one of my songs. So I started this 1 song at a time campaign. I did that. So I've still got a few of those songs laying around that I'll probably release early in 2021. And then I guess logically the thing to do is finish up the projects that I have sort of half started and need to finish. But God knows if I'll be logical about it. If I get inspired to do something and the stars align where I can get all my friends together, like Ross Hogarth or Ron St. Germain or some of those guys, and the stars line up so we can get together, then we'll probably do that.
I want to jump way back to when you first started playing guitar, and I read that you graduated from high school at a relatively young age of 14?
That's right.
When did you start playing guitar?
I didn't start playing guitar until I was 17. Interestingly, what kind of happened there, my first love, the thing that I knew that I wanted to do when I was 13 years old, I got pneumonia really bad. And I spent the whole summer and part of the fall really sick in the hospital, almost died there, started hemorrhaging. It was not good. But I discovered these old-time radio shows from the 50s and 60s. It was things like The Lone Ranger, The Shadow, and, before there was television, there was radio. And the stories used to be told with dialogue, music, and sound effects. And for a blind person, it was a revelation. I said, man, I could record this stuff. I could record sound effects. I could record music. I could record all this stuff for film and TV and, all that kind of stuff. I was just excited by this idea of recording and creating sound. And that's where it all started. And then when I was about 15, I got my first job at a planetarium as the sound technician. When I did that, a lot of people that worked the sound at the planetarium and at the museum were in their late teens, early 20s, and they all had garage bands. And they said, hey, man, we hear you got some recording equipment in your attic. I'm like, yeah, I do. And like, well, can we come record a demo? I was like, oh, sure. So that's how that started. And then one day, a band came in and recorded a song that I hadn't heard before. Most of these bands were recording covers. And a band came in and recorded a song I hadn't heard before. And I said, man, that's a great song. Who wrote that? Who is that? They said, we wrote that. And then the sort of second light bulb went off in my head and said, okay, I get it now. Music is the vehicle through which I'm going to tell my story. It's how I'm going to express myself. It's how I'm going to emote. It's how I'm going to de-stress. It's how I'm going to purify my soul. It's all these amazing things, and I'm going to do it through that. So that's when I really dedicated myself to learning guitar. I should give my parents a lot of credit early on because music was always a big part of our household. It was always a big part of, always surrounded by music as a child, and I loved it. But I never really considered doing it for a living because honestly, the first 14, 15 years of my life were just focused on survival. But man, once I started recording other bands, and then I was like, so it just all sort of came together. And I've never had another job except to do music and sound. That's all I've ever done.
That in itself is an amazing story, especially when you consider the dynamics of what it takes, A, to get into the business, and then B, to stay within the business and as diverse as you are is to find, and I don't know if niche is the correct word, but maybe it's to find the platform where you seem to excel at, both as a guitarist and as a studio guy. Is there anything that you have done that just hasn't worked as a musician or someone that works within the music industry where you've just hit that wall and said, okay, this just isn't going to be?
Well, I think the biggest problem I have is basically twofold. The first one is that blind guys can't drive, and as a young person that was starting out in the business, I really didn't tour like I should have because I was so young, and I just, I'd never been away from home, and I couldn't drive I had to put my faith in someone else. I'd have to let somebody else control my destiny, which I'm not a big fan of. So I never did, in my early 20s and stuff, I should have toured and stuff and didn't. That was difficult to overcome from a business perspective. Now, of course, it's not a problem. I'm older. I know what I'm doing. I'm very good at selecting the people I'm around. But when you're a kid and you're in a band, but some of the guys get drunk at a show, and some of the guys don't show up, and I didn't feel comfortable in that environment. Putting myself on the road with guys that weren't necessarily the most responsible.
Yeah, right. I got you.
And so that's kind of one of the reasons I got into the studio game. Is I thought, how can I do music and give people a reason to come to me instead of me having to come to them? So that's one thing. The other thing that's kind of been tricky is that, as I've explained, I'm a very eclectic soul. I love music. I don't like putting music in these little boxes. If you want to mix country and rap and heavy metal together in a song, I'm all for it. The problem with that is that you're going to have a hard time finding an audience.
Right.
I'm not saying there isn't one. I'm just saying you're going to have a hard time reaching them. That's the one good thing about the internet and social media, is that you can directly communicate with fans, and you can talk to them about what they want from you as an artist. And if you provide what they want, they're probably going to spend their money with you. And so being too eclectic is kind of a problem when you're trying to define your target audience and figure out where those guys live. So what I've started doing, and that has been more successful for me, is I broadly define myself. I have a broad brand for myself, but I narrowly focus each album and specifically brand it so that I can find the people that want to hear it. And I started being really successful at that in 2012, 2013. I really got a handle on how to do that. And I also realized that while I love progressive rock, and I've made several progressive rock albums, I sort of found that my market was either the jazz stuff or the blues stuff. And I just found that people really responded to that, and I didn't have to work as hard to make things happen when I was playing that kind of music. So there's a business perspective, and there's that word in music business. A lot of people forget about the business. But if you want to keep making the art, you got to bring in income.
Yeah.
You have to figure out that business side to make it work. So I think the big thing is know who you're trying to talk to, and then very carefully market each record to the people that are going to want to hear it. That being said, I believe, and I think it's been shown to be fairly true, I believe that if you like my jazz stuff, you'll like my blues stuff, and vice versa. But I do know that even dear friends of mine, some of my professors at Berklee Online and places like that, are like, we love you, we think you're amazing, focus on one sound. But while I've had several people tell me that, I've had another professor at Berklee that's become a dear friend say to me, your voice is unique, voice meaning your art. Your art is unique, just keep doing what you're doing, people will love it. So, some mixed signals there.
We're going to take a break, get a word in for another one of our sponsors. When we come back, we're going to have some more conversation with Joey Stuckey.
Hey, this is Steve Dorff, and you're listening to The Business Side of Music.
You're listening to The Business Side of Music.
Are you curious about Gordon Lightfoot's songwriting process, or what it was like working with Prince in the 80s? Have you ever given any thought to what goes into a golf course design or writing a book? I'm Steve Waxman, the host of The Creationist, a podcast about people who create. Each episode features a different creator sharing stories that I hope will inspire your own creativity. The Creationist is available now on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Back in the studio, Joey Stuckey is across the microphone from us here. If you had the opportunity to play with anybody, living or dead, who would it be?
Okay. I am highly annoyed that I never got a chance to meet and or play with Oscar Peterson.
Wow.
That is my hero because when he plays, the joy of his playing is just infectious. I mean, it's just, he's got an album out that's his trio live at the Blue Note. There's a 1 CD highlight of that, and then there's like a 4 CD of all the shows from that time they were at the Blue Note. And I think it was probably recorded in the 90s, something like that, but you can find it. But man, he'll sit there and play for 3 or 4 minutes with just his right hand. And you don't even realize that the left hand's missing until all of a sudden it comes in. And you're like, oh my God, he wasn't using his left hand to do all that stuff? And I just think Oscar Peterson is one of the greatest musicians to ever live. The joy of his playing, I don't know, the spirit of it is just so captivating. So as far as someone that's passed away, that would have to be fair, I wouldn't be able to keep up with Oscar Peterson, but that doesn't mean I don't want to try. And the other one, living, is I would love to do something with Paul McCartney. I just think Paul McCartney is one of the greatest, another amazing talent. Again, it's just so effortless for him. What you hear is just his spirit, and I just love that about his music.
2020 has been a challenging year. We talk about it a lot on the show. With you, it sounds like you like to get out on the road on tour if you're with the right people, or maybe I should say you like to get out on the road and perform with the right people. If it makes sense, what are your plans when this whole pandemic finally goes away?
Well, it's going to take time for the live music scene to come back. And I think that there's going to be several challenges. First of all, the venues have really suffered, and a lot of them won't even be around by the time we get things straightened out. There's so many venues I know of that have closed. One of the venues I love playing is the Mint in LA. They actually had a Kickstarter campaign where they said, hey, if any donation you give us will go to help pay our staff so they have food. And, I didn't have a lot to spare, but I gave them a little bit of money. And I did that for a couple venues because there's so many amazing venues. And these venues that support independent, high quality independent music, that's our life's blood. Because we're not going to all sell out 80,000 seat arenas. I mean, we can't all be Adele. So I think the first thing is to give the venues time to recover financially so they can pay us again. Because when things get to where people want to come out and feel comfortable coming out to see live music in groups again, you're still going to have the problem of the venues having been hit so hard financially that they probably won't be able to pay the artists what we would need to be able to be on the road, because you got to pay for hotel, you got to pay for gas, you got to pay for food, you got to pay for, while you're doing all that, you've got to pay for, radio campaigns and publicity and all these different things that have to go on to make the tour a success. So I think that's going to be challenging. But as soon as things stabilize so that we can hit the road, we will do that, and we will do it with a very planned, strategic idea. I use a hub and spoke method of touring. So we'll select an area as home base, and then we'll tour all around that area. And then once we've sort of saturated that area, we'll move to the next area. And one of the ways I do that is I look at radio play when I've got an album, and I look at the radio play and I look at the places that are playing us a lot, the places that really like what we're doing. And so if, for example, I'm being played a lot in Utah, which we get a lot of support in Utah. If I'm getting played a lot in Utah, but I'm not getting many plays in Texas, then I'm going to focus my attention on Utah and not Texas, because while you do have to expand your audience and make inroads into new territories, you also don't want to be going into an area where you're not known, you're not heard of, nobody's ever heard your record. That's a hard sell. So, we'll do that once things stabilize. We'll put out a new record and we'll go out and bring it to people and just use that sort of traditional planning. But, things are going to be different. I think it's going to take us a good year or so to figure out what the new landscape's going to look like so we can learn how to navigate it.
Yeah, that's what we're hearing on this end too. how can people find you?
The easiest catch-all way is to go to joeystuckey.com. That's www.joeystuckey.com. Everything you need to know is there, but I love interacting on social media. So for Twitter and Instagram, it's at the letter J, Stuckey Music. And then Facebook is facebook.com/Joey Stuckey. And I also have a music page, so facebook.com/Joey Stuckey Music. And then you can find my YouTube channel as well, which has some entertaining things on it. I've got a stupid video I did of me playing, it's called the Johnny Cash dollar bill trick. And it's something I did when I was on tour in Memphis. We stopped and decided to have an impromptu recording session at Sun Studio just for fun. While the guys were packing up, I did this little dollar bill guitar trick that Johnny Cash used. It's a 24-second video. It's got almost 200,000 views, and I guess people got really bored with COVID and wanted to stop. And wanted to see me sit there and play this silly guitar. But anyway, there's some entertaining stuff on there. I've got a wonderful, embarrassing video of my drummer doing his beard maintenance regimen. That's about 4 minutes of goodness. So you should definitely look that up.
Boy, that's a first for us. I think we will.
Listen, I'm telling you, it's highly entertaining.
Joey, thank you so much for being on the show.
Bob, my pleasure, my friend. I really appreciate it.
The Business Side of Music is the creation of Tom Sabella and Tracy Snow and is produced by Bob Bender. The Business Side of Music is recorded at Music Dog Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. Production sound design by Keith Stark. Voiceover and promo by Lisa Fuson.
Against your child. Everything that I do, it don't mean nothing if it ain't for you. Girl, you know. Girl, you know. It's like Brother Jimmy sang, oh, let me stand next to your fire. Everything that I do, it don't mean nothing if it ain't for you. Girl, you know. Girl, you know my name.
names, baby. No, that's only in your jealous mind. 'Cause listen, everything that I do, it don't mean nothing if it's not for you. Girl, you know, girl, you know, girl, you know, you know, girl, you know, oh, you know, oh, you know, my
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.